Hi there, welcome to another edition of 411 Pop Culture. This is your host, Justin Steele. Tonight I decided to talk about this past week's big sensation, Netflix's binge-worthy drama, Bird Box. Bird Box is a thriller starring Sandra Bullock as a woman in a post-apocalyptic society trying to take her and two kids down a river to a safe hideaway space refuge from a creature that merely by looking at it will drive you insane and or force yourself to commit suicide. I received a lot of requests to do a review on this film, so I got together with my friend Gina and we watched the movie, and I thought it was good. I thought it had a lot of strong elements to it. There were moments that were very suspenseful. I wouldn't say I was ever really scared watching it, but it was definitely interesting, and it kept my interest up for the 2 hour runtime. I thought Sandra Bullock, like I think with anything she does, I always think she does a really good job. I have been a fan of hers since Speed. I think I became a real fan during While You Were Sleeping, and I followed her career ever since, Miss Congeniality through Phenomenon. Which is a good example of a movie that's not that great, but because she's in it, it's a little bit better than it might have been otherwise. I think that Bird Box has a very interesting concept, and I think that Sandra Bullock's performance in it elevates it to something a little bit more interesting than it might have been otherwise. It still would have been good, but her performance definitely enhances it. She is joined by the always welcome Sarah Paulson in a supporting role, also joined by the always great John Malkovich, who he always does well these characters that can kind of be jerks, but also usually has a little bit more shading or depth to them, and this is one of those characters. Trevante Rhodes is sort of her love interest in the film, and though not that it matters, he's significantly younger than Sandra Bullock, and I only mention it because it is a dialogue plot point between the two, and I think he's well matched for her. His presence works well with hers. So the movie begins with a very intense opening where Mallory, Sandra Bullock's character, is talking to two children as she prepares to blindfold them as they get ready to head out on the river for a journey to what they hope will be a refuge from their current location and desolate situation. The movie is told in flashbacks, and you kind of jump back 5 years ago to moments on the river, and then in the last third of the movie you kind of find out what happened just prior to them going out on the river. Sandra Bullock's character, Mallory, has a very interesting, she is developed throughout the film as somebody who, when we first meet her in the past, she finds out she's pregnant. Her sister, Sarah Paulson, is trying to convince her that she's going to be a good mother when she meets this child, and etc. And that's kind of like a development throughout the film, as in how she does have to become a mother to these two children. However, true to her character, she names these kids. The boy is named Boy, the girl is named Girl, to sort of put her guard up, and she kind of assumes that at some point she's going to lose them, so she doesn't want to become too emotionally attached. And the film goes back and forth through these flashbacks until where this sort of entity arrives, that it starts in Russia, and everybody is either committing suicide or murders, going insane. They don't know very much information about it, but at first Mallory dismisses it as, a problem over there, something to not think about right here in her present, especially with the stress of having a child right now. However, after a hospital visit with her sister to check on the baby's status, she exits the doctor's office and notices that a woman she just saw is now bashing her head on the window. And as they leave the hospital and start to drive, everything's turning into chaos. It's a scene we've seen before in other post-apocalyptic movies and films. What comes to my mind most off the bat is the Dawn of the Dead remake, where Sarah Polley's character Anna is just waking up. Their little neighbor girl kind of attacks the Sarah Polley's husband. She has to escape, and it happens so fast that all of a sudden the world's in chaos. She's driving through this mess, And it's very similar to that. It's very much of a trope of the post-apocalyptic world where it sometimes if it happens or some situations when they look at it, it's going to happen fast. And as they're driving, Sarah Paulson's character Jess sees whatever it is that we're not meant to see, and the car flips over. Mallory is thrust into these crowds, and she's just running with the crowds, not looking until she is drawn in by a woman at a house who then looks up and sees it. The survivors at this house pull Mallory in, and that's where she kind of remains for the remainder of her pregnancy. And then again, these scenes are interspersed with scenes from the Mallory in the present traveling with these two kids on the river. Both segments, past and future, are interesting. You know, they both have moments of suspense, which is not always an easy feat to do when you know that the character you're following is at least going to be alive 5 years in the future. It still is suspenseful with the other characters, which, you know, form this a representation from each viewpoint. You have the sort of conservative John Malkovich character who is, you know, we have to, you know, we can't help anybody. We have to help ourselves. And, you know, if we let anybody in, then we're all going to die. You have B.D. Wong's character who is very open and, you know, we survive by helping each other. And then, you know, shadings of different characters throughout the way. Then a woman joins them who, you know, knocks on the door. They let her in. You find out she's also pregnant, but she's, you know, used as a sort of juxtaposition to Mallory in terms of she is very soft. She says she's spoiled in terms of like how she was raised. You know, she never had to worry about anything, and she's played by Danielle McDonald, who does a very nice job. You know, she does have this sort of soft quality, but you sort of get the idea that with time and sense of presence, she does have a certain strength to her, meaning, you know, Trevante Rhodes, who plays Tom, tries to show Sandra Bullock's character that, yes, to live we must survive, but is surviving just living? And Olympia, Danielle McDonald's character, is also kind of that sort of way of thinking in terms of, I know that I'm soft. I know that I'm not the best person to survive in this situation, but I want to live life. She embraces the idea of what it means to have a child, ultimately asking Sandra Bullock to take care of her child. So the movie goes on, various events happen. It sort of plays with the inversion of audience expectation, where John Malkovich's character is the type you think is like, oh, come on, buddy, you can't worry that much, or you can't, like, shut out everybody. He tends to be right in certain circumstances where you're like, well, he was the one who, you know, if he had been able to project his ideas, everybody might have lived longer, but you never know. So the film, you know, raises certain ideas that are interesting, and as you go in past and present, both the level of suspense is always pretty high. So while I enjoyed the pacing and the performances, my friend Gina,
it was good,
can attest that I did find the film to be predictable. I did call the twist ending, which I understand is very conceited of me to say, but it's something I'm good at, so I'll mention it. I did. This isn't really a spoiler, but in this review, I suppose this would be the closest thing to a spoiler. I did wonder in the film, you know, what would happen, though. So everybody, you know, they can't look at this creature. If they do, they're going to go crazy and or kill themselves or inadvertently kill somebody else. So they wear blindfolds all the time. And I did wonder, you know, well, what happened if you were already blind? Would you be more likely to survive in this world? And that does get answered, and it ends up being kind of a plot point. So while, you know, I don't think that's a direct spoiler, I did question that, and then I said to Gina, I'm like, oh, I think this is what's going to happen, and it did. So while I don't know if I'd say the film is predictable, I myself did predict that that was going to be the ending to the movie. Overall, though, there was a lot to enjoy. I thought for 2 hours of entertainment, it went by fast. I don't know that I'll ever really watch it again. I'll recommend it as one of those movies that are worth a watch. But we've seen, since, you know, The Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Blade Runner, all these sort of dystopian futures. How are we going to go out? How is humankind going to eventually end? Will it be with a bang or a whimper? And in this movie, it sort of hits you with the bang, and then there's all these whimpers that happen along the way. Sandra Bullock, though, does a really good job. The little kid characters, though, did a really nice job. Vivian Lyra Blair, who played Girl, was super cute. And the way that you were like, oh, if anything happens to this girl, I'm really not going to like this movie. Julian Edwards, who played Boy, was really good. He was more of a quiet soul. So it was kind of like between the kids, Mallory, the future aspect or the present day aspect was more of a development between her, between Mallory and Girl, and the kids did a really good job. Overall, though, I'd give the movie a watch it. It's worth a watch, especially now with all the sort of social media sensation that this has had. There have been dozens of memes. Like I said, I came into work the other day and like 4 people asked me if I've seen this movie yet, which happened right after I got about 2 text messages from friends saying, hey, did you watch Bird Box yet? And they're like, do a review, do a review. So overall, I thought it was fun. I thought it was fast-paced, interesting ideas. I don't know, I have issues with you never really get to see what it is that they're looking at, which is, the idea of the film. If we look at it, it adds an extra layer of fear for the general audience. That because in the movie, even if you look at this thing through a camera or technology of any sort, even if you're looking at it through an indirect source, you're still going to be affected. So it's kind of like a cheat, but also like it's innovative that you can't even look at it through this film, or something would happen to you. But again, one can argue that's a cheat. So I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun. The only other thing I really had an issue with were just a few little unanswered questions. Mallory and Olympia both state, that their pregnancies are going to be close, but at different dates, and then they both randomly go into labor at the exact same time, and it never really establishes whether that has something to do with the entity or if it's just some sort of coincidence. It's enough of a mystery that you do kind of wish that had been answered, but again, one can argue they're cheats, but in this film's world, it wouldn't be something that would necessarily be able to be answered. So, it's sticky issues like that, which make the film in a realistic way work, but as an audience, you might be kind of like, wait, so what did this mean? What was that about? Etc. So overall, thought the movie was good. Good first watch. You probably might not go back to it, but it was fun to latch onto the social media sensation. But let me know what you think. Did you end up watching it? Netflix says there's been 45 million viewers, so I'm sure you have. I hope you enjoyed it, or if you didn't, let me know. I look forward to hearing from you. This is your host, Justin Steele. This is 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. Thank you.